I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? Jake came back with another video, and today I'm going to be giving you my five biggest stories heading into the 2025 NFL Draft. We're about 12 days away, so it's starting to get very interesting with different developments and sources coming through and different stuff that we're hearing from different teams. But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that I talk about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for other NFL content that I'm going to be putting out over the summer and over the next couple of months. So let's go ahead and get into the five biggest stories that I think is going on going into the NFL draft. So starting out in no particular order, starting out with the number one thing that I think is going to be one of the biggest things that we look at is where will Shador Sanders be picked in this NFL draft? It's going to be very interesting. For the longest, we thought he was going to go either number two or number three overall to the Giants or the Browns. Now, over the past couple weeks, it's really started to shift that the Browns and the Giants are going to pass on him, is what a lot of people are thinking, a lot of the sources that we're going to be hearing. So once he doesn't get picked by the Giants at number three, it's very interesting to see where is he going to go. He really the number one spot that everybody's thinking right now is number nine to the Saints. But if he falls all the way to number nine, that could open up a team maybe trading up potentially. If a team trades up, maybe a team like the Jets at number seven is going to want to trade back. Maybe a team like the Patriots at number four would want to trade back if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are both off the board. And then it's going to get really interesting if we start to look at if the Saints don't end up picking them at number nine. Because if the Saints don't end up picking them at number nine, there's not another team really in that order until the Steelers at 21 that would end up taking him. And at some point, there's been a whole lot of chatter in that early second round about somebody moving up into the first round for one of these quarterbacks in the late first round. Potentially, most of that talk was about Jackson Dart or about Jalen Milroe, but Shador Sanders still there around that early 20 spot with the Steelers at 21, and they're there at that 19 area. I could easily see a team like the Rams or there's been talk about the Browns in the early half of the second round trying to move back up into the middle part of that first round. I think Todd McShay just released his mock draft and he had Travis Hunter being taken by them at number two, and then he had the Cleveland Browns moving up from pick 33, which is the first pick in the second round, all the way up to 15 to be able to take Shador Sanders as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he starts to fall, what team is going to end up having to trade up and where are they going to trade up from to be able to give up that much stuff. So if you look at it here, the potential landing spots that we really have is potentially most people thought he was going to go to the Giants at three. That looks more unlikely now that they're going to go Abdul Carter, so they would have to move up from that early second round spot that they have. The Saints, that's the most logical one in the top 10 if he ends up going. That would be number nine overall to the Saints. The Browns, a lot of people thought for the longest that he was going to go number two to the Browns. Now they have the first pick in the second round, so they could potentially move up if he ends up falling in front of the Steelers at pick 21 to be taken if he doesn't go number nine to the Saints. And then overall, it's really the bottom of where he's going to go. If he ends up making it to 21, I think that's the farthest that he's going to go, and it's going to be the Steelers at 21 that's going to end up taking him if he does end up making it there. But in my opinion, and most of my mocks I've been putting out on the channel, if you haven't seen those, please go and check those out. But most of my mocks I've been putting out, I have Shador Sanders going number nine to the Saints pretty much now at this point. I think really since we just got the Derek Carr news yesterday, I believe Derek Carr really he may not even be able to play next season, so they're really going to need a quarterback. All they got Spencer Rattler. I don't think Kellen Moore, their head coach, is going to want to go in with Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback. He's definitely going to look for another option to run his offense to be able to give them a chance almost next year as they end up moving on into this next year. So I think that they're going to look for a starting quarterback like Shador Sanders to be able to go in there and a number nine's pick to run his offense. Coming in at the second biggest story is how will teams value the running back position? In years past, when we look at running back, I've always been on this board as well that in the draft you don't take running back high because you can find value and get a better position are a better or a good player at that similar position later in the draft. So you always wait on running back in that fourth or fifth round because the real important part is the offense line. But in a draft class this year, it's a little bit weaker. It doesn't really have the star power. It's mostly starter type guys, and you have probably one of the deepest running back classes in NFL history. How are teams going to value that position, and are they going to take them higher than what we're usually expected? Every once in a while, we usually have that very good running back prospect. We've seen a generational one a couple of years ago in Saquon Barkley in 2018, who went number two overall. We've seen Zeke go number four. So it's really, they always have that one guy usually, but we don't usually see the depth of this running back class that we have. So that can either help them or hurt them because we have that star power at the very top that can go very high, but we also have the depth of almost the best running back class. So you could really get a guy in that third or fourth round that is usually probably a second round pick, but he's just falling on the board since it's such a good running back class. So it kind of hurts and benefits itself a little bit by it being such a good running back class. And the main questions going into this about teams valuing the running back, how high will Genty go? Now, the real question that I'm going to get to in a second is the Patriots. The Patriots, it looks like that they'd probably go Will Campbell if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are not there. But there is a question. Ashton Jeanty is considered by most the third best player in this draft, regardless of position. So do they look at it as helping Drake May and wanting to establish that running game? Mike Vrabel, when he was in Tennessee, had Derrick Henry. So do they look at Ashton Jeanty and take him number four, or does he go number six to the Raiders, what people expect, or does he end up falling just a little bit and going down to number 10 to the Bears? I think it's the lowest possible area that he could end up going. And then you move on from Ashton Jeanty, the widely consistent number two overall running back in this class is Amarion Hampton. Will he go top 10? I think most people, depending on where Genty goes, has him pretty high. I usually have him go number 10 overall to the Bears. So does he go to the Bears at that number 10 spot if Genty ends up going to the Raiders? Does Amarion Hampton go number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys? They could be looking for an offensive weapon. Most of the time, people have him taking receiver, but their running back room is Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. That's not going to cut it. They definitely need to upgrade, whether they wait till the second round to do it or they go into the first round and take him at number 12. And then as well, Amarion Hampton going, if he ends up falling, the farthest I think he's possibly going to fall is number 20 overall to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are going to look to pretty much upgrade that running back position to help Bo Nix. They went out and signed Evan Ingram, so they either need a wide receiver or a running back. And if Amarion Hampton, who would most time probably be the number one running back in any draft class if it wasn't for Ashton Jeanty, does he end up, where does he end up going? Where does he end up falling? How high is he going to be picked based on that running back value? And then lastly, a couple mock drafters, we haven't seen it in a while, but they kind of flirted with the idea of having three running backs going in the first round. Most people had Ashton Jeanty, Amarion Hampton, and Travion Henderson from Ohio State. So, are we going to see that three running backs in the first round? It's pretty much unheard of, especially with Amarion Hampton going number 10 to have two running backs in the top 10. We haven't seen that in probably ever. So, do we see those three running backs go in the first round with the value of the running back position, or are teams going to wait until the second or third round to address it to hopefully get guys like a Quinshon Judkins who could be just as good as a Marion Hampton, but he's going to be in the second or third round, or maybe a Caleb Johnson, which a lot of teams end up liking in the second round. So our team's going to wait, or are they going to pull the trigger on Amarion Hampton or Ashton Jeanty? I guess we're going to have to see in the draft, but that's going to be one of the biggest questions that I'm going to see going into this. The third question of the NFL draft is what do the Patriots do at number four if Adul Carter and Travis Hunter are not there? What is going to be the expectation? Because overall, the nightmare scenario for the Patriots that it's starting to look like is going to happen is if Shador Sanders doesn't go in the top three, and we have the Cleveland Browns and Giants taking Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter back to back. That's pretty much a nightmare scenario for the Patriots because they're really hoping that Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter is there. Because at that number four spot, with the Patriots' needs and the players there, it's and what they're trying to do to be able to protect Drake May, most likely, it's definitely going to be a reach of no of whoever they pick at that number four spot. So looking at it, there's a couple options that they could end up having. Are they going to protect Drake May? The real idea is, do they take tackle? It could be on Armand Membu on the right side, which is unlikely because they just went out and signed Morgan Moses in free agency to play right tackle. And most likely the pick at number four, if they wanted to protect Drake May, would be Will Campbell from LSU. Now, I'm not the biggest Will Campbell guy, but he's consistently in the top 10 in most mocks, and NFL teams really like him compared to me. Obviously, that's why they're an NFL team, and I'm not really, I'm just doing YouTube. So that's why they get paid the big bucks to go out and scout people. But that's really gonna be the question is if they're trying to help Drake May, are they going to pull the trigger and reach a little bit at number four on a Will Campbell type guy, or are they going to go best player available? The real question would be Ashton Genty, like I mentioned with the last question, is number three overall and is the number three guy that most people say is the number three best player in this draft. So would you take him at number four despite having that running back value, despite having a couple good running backs on your roster like Ramondre Stevenson and a couple other guys? Do you go ahead and pull the trigger and take Ashton Genty there at number four, or do you take the offensive lineman Will Campbell? Or the third option that they could possibly have, could they be able to trade back with a team that wants to move up to take Genty? I'm sure teams, the Raiders are kind of the soft spot for Ashton Genty at number six. I'm sure a team like the Bears are probably going to want Ashton Genty, and if they want Ashton Genty, they're going to have to move up to get him. And the most likely scenario would be them moving up to number four to take him in front of the Raiders. So with the Patriots, it's kind of weird though because you need a team to want to trade back, and their only option is really going to be to number 10 to the Bears. And the last option that they really would have if you don't go Will Campbell, if you don't go Genty, do they go ahead and take Mason Graham, even though in free agency they went out and they addressed the interior of the defensive line? You still have Christian Barmore who's going to be coming back from injury. You just went out and you signed Milton Williams, you signed Harold Landry on the edge. So you still have those positions that you just addressed. So Mason Graham is pretty much out of the question at that point, I would think, if they just went out and paid Milton Williams 25 million a year that they ended up doing. So he would probably be out of the question at this point. So it's either Genty, it's either Will Campbell, or it's either they trade back and they would have to find a partner to be able to do that in a weak draft class, and be able to move back and probably miss their chance on Will Campbell if they end up doing it. And the number four biggest question of this NFL draft is where will Jalen Walker go? How high will he go? Will he end up falling? At this point, a couple months ago, he was pretty much one of the most widely ranged prospects of where he would go. Some people would have him in the top 10, number eight overall to the Panthers. Some people would have him around that area to the Cardinals or the Atlanta Falcons. Some people would have him in the late first round. So really with him, he's more that tweener guy. He ended up playing linebacker and he ended up playing edge rusher at the University of Georgia. He ended up going in with both. And for the edge rusher size, he's a little bit smaller than what you would like. He is very quick. He ends up playing with great speed off the ball, and he ends up pretty much having that great jump against a lot of offensive linemen to be that effective edge rusher. But he also doesn't have a whole lot of production at the University of Georgia. I think he had about 6 sacks this past year before he moved down to edge rusher, where he was end up tweening in between. So how are teams going to value that? Right now, it seems like that a lot of teams value him very highly, and that he's most likely going to go to the Panthers at number eight, and that's where he seems like he's going to be a lock is the Panthers at number eight. But there's a couple of questions with this. If the Panthers don't take him, what team ends up taking him? Because right now it seems like the Saints are going to go Shador. The Bears, they would probably go Tyler Warren or Marion Hampton. Maybe the 49ers, or maybe he falls down into his original draft area like the Cardinals or Falcons in the mid part of the first round. And if a team does value him very highly, and teams do, from what I'm hearing, at number 10 and number eight overall in the top 10, could there be a team that wants to trade up? There's been a lot of chatter that the Jets could potentially want to trade back and gather picks to be able to take guys that fit their new regime with Aaron Glenn. So if you want to be able to take him, the idea is that the Panthers are going to take him at number eight, so you have to jump the Panthers. And the team right in front of the Panthers at number seven is the New York Jets. And the biggest idea of this is that the Falcons, if they want to upgrade their edge rusher position, which they're probably going to want to because they ended up letting go of a lot of interior defensive linemen like Grady Jarrett and a couple of their edge pieces. They really just need to upgrade that defensive line. And if they want to do that, then what better feeling of than going up and getting your guy and jumping a divisional rival in the Panthers and being able to take the guy that they were going to pick there at number 8. So do you move up to that number 7 spot with the New York Jets to jump a team that you're going to play twice a year that you end up hating to be able to take the guy that they were going to have so you can have him on your team in Jalen Walker? So would they move up, give up probably a first round next year? That's a lot for a guy like Jalen Walker. So you got to look at the value that you're giving up. Do you move all the way up to number 7, but probably have to give up a first round pick next year? So you're basically giving up 2 first rounders for Jalen Walker. If you truly do believe that he's going to be that dominant guy at the edge rusher position, edge rusher is one of the most valuable positions in the NFL. So you're probably going to go and give that up to move up to that spot if you believe that he can be the guy. And then lastly, if he doesn't go to the Panthers, like we said, where does he end up falling to? Where does he end up going? Because if he doesn't go to the Panthers and end up wanting to upgrade their defense, most likely their edge rusher, he could end up falling quite a bit into that middle part of the first round. And if he doesn't go there, he could end up falling into the mid 20s. So it's going to be that area of how high do teams really view him, and will he end up going that high in the NFL draft? He's seemingly a lock to the Panthers at number 8 right now, and that's pretty much where he's going to go as of right now. But if he doesn't go there, it could get very interesting. And then the last question of this NFL draft of these 5 things is what value will be at the top of the second round? If you look at it, a lot of people may not think this, but this is a very deep draft class if you're looking for starters. Now, we've talked about how it may be a weaker draft class. It doesn't have that star potential. The first top 10 picks, like a couple of years ago and last year, aren't going to be all proers and future coming up. But this is a very good starter class. Once you get past like the first 3 picks, a lot of the stars are gone. So you're really looking for the value in this draft in that middle part of that first round and in the high end of the second round because a lot of these guys are going to be considered very similarly ranked. So it's really going to depend where they end up falling based on those rankings. Because if you look at this draft class, the thing that makes this class so interesting is that we obviously don't know who's going to go where yet because of how closely all these guys are ranked. There's certain guys that like Kelvin Banks, that if he went number 10 overall in the top 10, I wouldn't be shocked. But then if he also ended up falling and going in the mid 20s to Houston, I wouldn't be shocked with that as well. So that's how closely ranked all these guys are and how it's going to kind of have to play out. So that means with them being closely ranked, a lot of people are going to be picked ahead of certain guys and could end up falling into that second round area that we probably wouldn't expect just because of the different rankings that certain teams have. And most likely, usually what happens is if one dude falls in a certain position, especially in the early part of the first round, all the players in that position group are probably going to fall. So one of the biggest questions is cornerbacks. A lot of people have been hyping up a lot of the cornerbacks in the first round, but if they start to fall, all of those corners are going to fall into the second round to create that value. Or with it being such a deep defensive line class, a couple of those edge pieces can end up falling because it's such a deep class into that second round. We're looking at James Pierce. James Pierce 2 years ago in the SEC had 17 sacks. He has character issues now, and he wasn't as productive this past year. And now a lot of people have him go number 32 to the Eagles, and the talk is they may potentially be able to fall into the second round because that edge class is so valuable, and he has character issues that a lot of people are discussing, especially the interior, the defensive line as well. You have Darius Alexander from Toledo that's probably going to fall into the second round. Derek Harmon is a guy that could end up going in the first round in the 20s, or he could potentially end up falling into the early second round with one of the first few picks, and you wouldn't be shocked about either one of those. So it's going to be very interesting to see all the good starters that you could be able to get in the early second round. That's why I think the Bears are in a very good spot if you look at their picks because they have that top 10 selection, but then they also have 2 very early second round picks to where they can go and get some very good talent that could end up falling. And Mel Kiper's most recent mock draft, they had him taking Tyler Warren at number 10, and then with those 2 second round picks, they ended up getting Walter Nolan and Travion Henderson. So getting those 3 guys are going to be very effective for a team because that's 3 starters right there that you could get in a draft. And whenever you're going to a draft, you're really hoping that you could get 2 or 3 starters. And if you get 2 or 3 starters, that's a really good draft for your team. And then also looking at what teams are going to move back into that early second round area, because there's been a lot of chatter about these quarterbacks, and in that early 2020 range, as Shador starts to fall, or if there's Jackson Dart or even Jalen Milroe that people are talking about, there's certain chatters that most of these guys at the top of the second round that are going to pass on quarterback in the first are going to move up into that late first round to take one of these guys. There's people like the Browns who have the first pick in the second round. They could potentially move up. There's been a lot of chatter of them moving up for either Jackson Dart or possibly even Shador Sanders, or the Giants are in there at that early second round spot. They can end up moving up for a certain quarterback because if they take Abdul Carter at 3. So it's going to be very interesting to see which groups end up falling and what happens with these early second round picks with these guys that are going to be very good starters in the NFL. But these are my 5 biggest questions heading into the NFL draft. Please make sure to like the video, comment down below anything you agree or disagree with that I talked about in here, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content that I'm going to be putting out. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Moran, need a triple-double, told him check the stats, yeah, I got a couple, I don't drop the ball, now I never fumble, I'm the MVP, now I feel like Russell, feel like John Moran, need a triple